And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining us. It is 106, and I know we were having some little audio issues there. Addison, the audio is fine now, is it not? Or are we still experiencing that little hiccup or issue?
It is A-OK right now,
All
so
right, well,
that was a
good to
new one.
go. Right on. Well, Bridgette is not here at the moment. I do not know if she is going to make it to the program for today. She is theoretically sitting on tarmac in Washington, D.C. right now on a plane, and she should be taxiing up to the terminal here soon. Her plane was scheduled to land at 12:50 our time, so she should be joining us at some point throughout the course of this program or hour, hopefully, as long as there weren't any delays. Dean Wysocki is well out of studio. He's down in Scottsdale, Arizona, so he's enjoying a nice week vacation. So they both left me here on a windy, wet day. And I know there's been quite a bit of rainfall that's fallen around the area. It's been pretty needed. I mean, the far northern valley needs it the most. They're still dealing with some drought conditions, while down in the southern valley, it's not too bad, but still experiencing abnormally dry conditions in some spots down here. And we're looking at the drought monitor across our area. Again, it is the northern valley that's experiencing the worst drought. It's not terrible, but the northeastern corner of North Dakota is categorized in that severe drought or a D2, with some moderate drought surrounding that extending over in northern Minnesota. Now, northern Minnesota not going to be getting as much rain as we are here in the Dakotas or the southern half of the state, especially down into South Dakota where they're dealing, or Iowa, where they're dealing with extreme drought. That will definitely help alleviate some of those dry conditions and hopefully set us up pretty well for a spring plant. Obviously, some of us may have to wait a little bit for some of the moisture to dry out on the fields, but I think that the fields, for the most part, are dry enough to handle the amount of rain that we're going to get in an adequate amount of time. And it shouldn't set too many people too far back. But if you want to chime in on how much rain you've gotten in your location so far, feel free to do so. Give us a call on the Red Wing Shoes phone line. That's 701-293-9000. Also, program emails are weather or ag at flagfamily.com, but I would send them to weather at flagfamily.com so that way I can get them. Otherwise, Bridgette will get all the agricultural ones. You can also leave comments there on the Facebook and YouTube videos, YouTube Live, I should say. Drop some comments there to get a hold of. And rainfall amounts across the area are not too terribly impressive right now within the Red River Valley. Just about everybody has seen almost a tenth of an inch of rain, with an exception for some spots just east of the river over into Clay County. But down in the far southern valley, down by Wahpeton, about a quarter of an inch, 7/100ths of an inch of rain here in Fargo. Leonard coming in at 2/10ths of an inch. Castleton just over a quarter inch of rain. Air, North Dakota, just over a quarter inch of rain. And as you work your way up into the northern valley, those amounts do tail off a little bit, but still not too bad. Eldred over in Minnesota coming in at zero point 0.1. Grand Forks coming in at 0.08 inches of moisture. Heading a little further up towards Grafton, 0.18 inches of rain. The higher amounts have been down to our south and as well as off into western North Dakota. They haven't been too terribly dry, but they definitely want the moisture out in areas of central North Dakota, picking up 3/4 of an inch of rain and a solid band of 3/4 to an inch of rain extending in portions of western North Dakota from the Canadian border down into South Dakota. Southern Minnesota is going to be the bullseye with this storm, picking up anywhere between 1 and 4 inches of some moisture, with some storms that will be rolling down there, where there are currently some tornado watches in areas of Iowa, Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois, and far southern Wisconsin. So we're not dealing with the severe weather, but man, the wind might make you think otherwise. It's pretty windy. Addison, I don't know if you've been outside lately, but it is just whipping out there pretty aggressively, especially in spots. Gusting to 35 right now here in Fargo. The air temperature 50 degrees, and we'll continue to see the wind at times gusting over 50 miles per hour in areas of Lakes Country throughout this afternoon towards the late afternoon and early evening hours. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few gusts break that 60 mile per hour threshold. And just for a reference, when we're talking about thunderstorms, severe thunderstorm warnings for wind, the minimum criteria for one of those is 59 miles per hour. So we're flirting with severe thunderstorm winds are not dealing with thunderstorms. We're just getting some pretty gusty conditions with this weather system that's passing through the area that's bringing all the rain showers up and down the valley that are going to last throughout the rest of today on and off in locations, with the gusty winds out of the east-southeast gusting to 55 miles per hour. There are wind advisories that do remain in effect throughout the Southern Valley and into Lakes Country and western Minnesota until about 7 o'clock this evening. Then we'll see the wind starting to lighten up a bit, but it'll still be windy tonight on either side of the valley. Within the FM metro and areas around us, the wind will lighten up quite a bit, about 10 to 25, but especially over in Minnesota, we'll still see gusts of 40 throughout tonight, and that just leads into a breezy day for tomorrow. We're still going to see some scattered showers around the area, not quite as wet or windy as today. We'll have temperatures in the mid-50s with northwest winds gusting to 30 miles an hour. And for the most part, outside of a few sprinkles, we'll dry things out on Thursday. Friday, there is a possibility for a little bit of light snow here or there, some snow showers. Nothing's going to accumulate out of this is the way it appears, but it will remain breezy. Temperatures for the most part will be in the 30s to near 40 degrees on Friday. But the good news is, for everyone who's missing the warm spring-like weather versus this wet spring-like conditions, as we head into next week, we'll have temperatures rebounding back into the 60s by Tuesday and flirting with near 70 degrees Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Again, if you want to join in on the program today, 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing Shoes phone line. You can tell us how much rain you've gotten so far at your location, if you've had any damage from any of the wind gusts. The fastest wind gust I've seen so far is just shy of about 50 miles per hour in our area, but we'll likely see those wind gusts continuing to pick up. Also, at some point when Bridgette gets in here, we'll have some ag topics to talk about, talking a little bit about drone improvements, biosecurity measures, and also beef prices not dropping. So we'll have a few of those to talk about when she rolls into the terminal over there in Washington, D.C. And we'll have a guest joining us as well coming up here. This is going to be Chad Priewe. He's with Dacotah Bank, and he's a sponsor of Here We Grow. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Chad is doing over there with Dacotah Bank, what's going on with the economy, banking, and agriculture just in general, and things that we're looking at or looking forward to for ag business as we head into 2024, spring plant, and eventually towards harvest time. So if you want to queue up questions for Chad, feel free to give us a call again on that Red Wing Shoes phone line. Let's see what else we got going on the program today. We may have, if we have enough time, I think we have one more Cheyenne Gardens trivia that we need to give away. So we might do that in our last segment. And as well, we're still doing Jay's tax return sometime between now and 2 o'clock, with your opportunity to get qualified to win $1,000. And we'll be doing that between the 8 o'clock hours, the 10 o'clock hours, the 1 o'clock hour, and the 4 o'clock hour, between Bonnie and Friends, the Coffee Club, Weather and Ag in Focus, and the Jay Thomas Show. 4 opportunities each day. So listen every day between those hours, and really you should just be listening to all the shows. They do a great job. We're going to take a moment here. We'll have to get caught up with the American Ag Network in a few moments to see what's going on with the Ag Network. But when we come back, we're going to have Chad Priewe joining us again from Dacotah Bank, and we got all sorts of different questions to ask him as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the Here We Grow project and what it is that we're going to be doing this year. So stay tuned. Weather and Ag in Focus. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us. It is 1:20 in the afternoon on this Tuesday, and while we're getting Chad connected here, uh, you probably heard a few of the technical hiccups at the beginning of the show. Well, we're having a few more right now, and one of our links doesn't seem to be working. So, Chad, if you can hear us, give us a call on the studio line 701-293-9000. We'll make that work if we can't get this other connection secured. Again, if you want to join the program today, feel free to give us a call. Red Wing Shoes phone line, that's 701-293-9000. We'll have Cheyenne Garden Trivia coming up towards the end of the show, and sometime between now and then, as well, a chance or an opportunity to get qualified for $1,000 courtesy of Jay's Tax Relief. While we're giving Chad a moment here to reconnect with our studio, I thought it was kind of fitting. If you got any fun memories or stories of some storms and you want to share them with us, feel free to do so. Since we're kind of, heading into that time of the year where we're going to hopefully start seeing some more thunderstorms around the area, and probably a good likely chance of some severe weather as we head into the months of May and June. And severe weather to our south that is bringing tornado warnings in areas of Nebraska, and tornado watches and severe thunderstorm warnings over into Iowa and Missouri and Illinois and southern Wisconsin. That'd be a fun little thing to remember some past stories. So I'll tell you one that I had back in the year of 2015. This was a pretty big storm system that rolled through the Brainerd Lakes area after it rolled through North and South Dakota, bringing some severe thunderstorm warnings. This came in right in the middle of July. I remember it just being a super hot and humid day. I was working out on Gull Lake at the time, and this storm was one of the storms that was responsible for flattening an entire forest along the east side of Gull Lake back in 2015. Or hundreds of thousands of trees ended up going down with this along the side of the lake there and into areas of the Pillsbury Forest. And it got categorized as just being straight line winds in excess or estimated wind speeds of 110 miles per hour, even though there were a few unconfirmed reports of a tornado being in there. I'd always beg to differ that there definitely was one, because it was right in front of the building I was sitting in when that tornado came through across the lake. I just remember everything sounding like a freight train, and everything went white because of the tornado, or the wind was whipping all the water off from the lakeside. The docks were getting ripped out of the water. Even pontoon lifts with pontoons in them were getting picked up and rolled across the lake. So it's just a fun little thing. And Addison, I don't know if you've had any close encounters with storms or tornadoes over the past years, have you?
So a couple years ago, I used to live in Dalton with my parents. It's just the other side of Fergus Falls from us. And there was
Mm-hmm.
a pretty, I don't know, average thunderstorm that had come through the area. And afterwards, there was just this huge rainbow across the highway. And there were a bunch of cars stopped everywhere. Like, there were just people, like, out in the middle of the street. They're just taking pictures of this giant rainbow. And me and my mom were out standing in the driveway. And suddenly, my mom gets a call from my stepdad, and he's like, I don't know if you guys are at the house or not, but you guys need to get in a car and leave. And we're confused, and we're trying to figure out, like, why, what's going on? There was a
Yeah.
tornado directly behind us. We didn't even know it was
Oh,
coming. We
wow.
couldn't see or hear it. It was right across the field from us.
Yeah. What year was that?
This was just a couple years ago, maybe 3, 4 years ago.
So early 2020s, somewhere around there. Yeah, there's been a numerous handful of reports of some tornadoes last year. The little outbreak over by Monoman and Lakes Country, Minnesota. Obviously, the Northwood tornado wasn't too long ago, and even back in the early 2000s, one of the more infamous tornadoes of the early 2000s. Right here in southeastern South Dakota, or North Dakota, excuse me, the Marion, the Newt family farm tornado that completely leveled the farm. And as a thankfully the people living there at the time last second decided to get in their car and drive away, because you see some of the aftermath pictures of that tornado that ripped through there, which I believe was rated a EF4, just completely uprooted the house, and all that was left was a few of the cinder blocks in the basement. So thankfully they got out of there. And we got Tom on line one again. If anyone wants to chime in on this topic, 701-293-9000. Tom, welcome to the show. What's going on today?
Yeah, Justin, say that. Actually, I told Addison one quick thing, but actually two. I was 6 years old when a tornado went through our northern Minnesota town. A flood would have went past. It went north of town, but destroyed about 15 farms. That was like, well, that was before EFs. That was like an F2. And
Mm-hmm.
that tornado, they've discovered many times, or I mean, over time, rather, I'm sorry, many years later, exactly where it touched down, went across. That was in 1968. And my mom helped with families that they found cows that were missing things. And,
Wow.
but then that really got me interested in weather, and I regret never being a meteorologist. But in '99, when that big blow, the derecho that went through the BWCA that started in the Dakotas first, my wife and I were driving home, and before we got to where we lived, still in northern Minnesota, we pulled over. The sky had turned green. We pulled over. We had a Honda Accord, and it started to bounce. And that was we were on a highway, and I'll tell you, the car was starting to lift up and down and up and down, and we were stopped. But when we got home, we had a business at the time. We sold equipment trailers. There were the trailers were moved, but not tipped over. But there were trees there were moved that were twisted. And then a friend of mine, about 70 acres of his forest was destroyed by
Wow.
big tornado. They don't know what, but the car hovering, that was scary.
I could only imagine what that feeling would be like. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have hydroplaned, and having absolutely no control of a vehicle is one thing, but could you imagine? And in your case, you have firsthand experience of what that feeling is of a car lifting off the ground because of the weather.
Yeah, getting lighter than it should be. Yes.
Absolutely terrifying. Hey, Tom, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. Really appreciate it. So thank you. Have a great rest of the afternoon and for sharing your story with us. And Chad, you're on the line now with us as well, I believe. Do we got you connected, Chad?
I am here.
Hey, Chad, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm hanging in there on this windy afternoon, thankfully, and don't have too much work to do outside today, just kind of watching it from the window side. But you got any fun storm stories from back in the day at all? Anything that was a little maybe too close for comfort?
Well, probably my best one. In a previous life, I did some farm management for a trust department in the area here, and was managing some farm properties out by Minot, and was working my way back from there, back to Amenia, and kind of caught a thunderstorm, kind of north of Velva, I think, a little bit. As it kind of started, I was checking on a piece of land there, and basically kind of followed that all the way along Highway 200 from about that Denhoff area, all the way over, and was always kind of right behind it, and then basically kind of caught it all between Carrington and Cooperstown, and I don't know, basically kind of drove into it a little bit thinking I'd scoot by it, and got to where I couldn't really see anything, pulled over into a driveway, and I'm trying to think, it's a town just west of Cooperstown a little ways, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but anyway, pulled into the driveway, and it was windy like you wouldn't believe, and I was in a crew cab, half-ton pickup, and yeah, it was kind of moving. Never really felt like it got light or off the ground to speak of at all, but she was a wiggling a little bit, and then fairly quickly it kind of went through. I was basically a mile outside of the small town there, and once I got to town, I could see trees down, and there was enough wind there that it even like ripped down an older fence backstop on a small baseball field. So, enough wind to catch that little bit of surface area and just tore that up and stuff too. So yeah, that was a little closer than I needed to be.
Yeah, there's been a handful of instances like that. I remember being down in the Twin Cities for a lacrosse tournament while they were trying to finish up a game before a big storm came through. Well, they pushed it a little too close for comfort as everyone's sitting in metal bleachers, and a big tree, probably no more than 50 feet behind these metal bleachers, got struck by lightning. Probably the loudest
Oh,
sound I think I've ever experienced is a lightning bolt outside 50 feet away. I mean, you could feel the static on your body starting to build,
yeah.
like it was going, like your arm hair was starting to lift up. And I mean, that's, to me, that's the most eerie feeling that I've ever experienced in my life, is that, that feeling of static electricity and everything just right around you going still, and then just bang, big old lightning
Yeah,
bolt.
gave you a new hairdo in an instant, huh?
Sure did. I mean, the left side of my body went numb for 45 minutes afterwards, so I don't know what the reasoning behind that was, but it was that was my too close for comfort. I was inside, maybe one thing, but I'll tell you what, it really gives you a new appreciation for lightning anytime you're near a storm or outside when the skies are rumbling. You just kind of never think about it before, but after that, it's a whole nother story. But anyways, we didn't have you come on to talk about weather today, Chad. We're going to talk a little bit about banking. For those that don't recognize the voice, this is Chad Priewe from Dacotah Bank. We're going to be talking a bunch about kind of what's going on in banking perspective, as well as what's going on in Chad's line of work. And Chad and Dacotah Bank are also sponsors of Here We Grow, and this is their second go around. So I'm guessing we did something right last year if you wanted to sign back on again there, Chad. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, before we do that, we got to get caught up with local news. Bottom of the hour, we'll get caught up with Ty and Tom from the WDAY newsroom. And when we come back, we'll rejoin this conversation with Chad Priewe from Dacotah Bank. Again, 701-293-9000 is the Red Wing Shoes phone line, or emails to the program, weather or ag at flagfamily.com. The choppy talking back on the radio. Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us. 1:35 on this windy and wet afternoon. I'm meteorologist Justin Storm in the co-pilot seat. We got the Highlander Cow in studio, and in the hotel shuttle bus extraordinaire vehicle somewhere in Washington, D.C., we now have Bridgette Readel. Bridgette, what's going on? How was your flight?
You know what? The wind you predicted, true to form. That caused a little bit of havoc. I would also say that the Fargo to Minneapolis flight, that was exciting. There were some folks on the plane that were a little surprised that it was more like a roller coaster ride. But as you said, there was a storm moving in. All is now well. So yes, I'm in Washington, D.C. It is sunny and 80 degrees here. So sorry you're not here with us.
It's windy, wet. It's gusting to 50. It's 50 degrees. It's cold and miserable. Thankfully, I'm in Waikiki Beach, Hawaii. I'm on a tropical island, but everyone else, man, enjoy your whatever day it is today. We got Chad here as well, Chad Priewe of Dacotah Bank. Chad, welcome back. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Same thing. Just watching the rain out the window here a little bit and watching the trees blow and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, hey, you're a sponsor of Here We Grow. First most, thanks for continuing to be a sponsor of Here We Grow in our project. And, you're over with Dacotah Bank. What do you think of the little project we got going on from last year and expectations for this year?
Yeah, definitely enjoy the project that you guys do. Been ag all my life and, doing the ag banking part now. And Dacotah Bank's, has been and continues to be a strong ag bank in general. And anything we can ever do to help bring ag to the greater public and help educate anybody, out there a little bit on what's all involved and the intricacies of it and some of that stuff, any type of education and see what people can pick up off of it. And, the fact that the proceeds go to charities and stuff like that, definitely back you guys on that and happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I have really no ag background at all besides playing my little farming simulator game on my computer, which, by the way, is absolutely amazing fun and in a way therapeutic, but man, does it eat the day away. But I have no idea what it really goes into farming, and nobody else seems to really have a great handle on it unless you're involved in agriculture and you farm, even if you garden. I mean, there's nothing quite compares to going to the larger scale of a whole operation. So that's been a really fun thing about the video aspect of this, is being able to document all the little intricacies and planning and getting the equipment out in the field, making sure the soil is right to have the equipment in the field, because you don't just go out, put seed in the ground and come back in October and harvest it. I mean, you're doing work around the clock through the entire year. So it's been really fun to just kind of be able to show that side of agriculture. And from the soybeans that we were doing last year, I mean, we showed a fair amount, but not anywhere near how much actually goes into it. So I wanted to ask you, as a banker's perspective, what are things going through your mind as we head into another year of growing for 2024?
Well, I guess, you always start, we're just getting finished up with renewal season. Guys that have operating lines through their various lenders and stuff like that, you go through and assess last year's financials and compare it to previous years and trends and stuff like that. So we get all that stuff in place for, financing and funding the operation for the year, or helping to, and get all that stuff in place. And, one of the natural things, especially coming off of last fall and obviously through this winter, that was a little light on precipitation, although from what I understand, actual precipitation, we weren't too far off from average on the actual participation amount. Obviously, the snow was a little different, but our lovely winter rain events were something in themselves. But always looking for, weather and some of those uncontrollable things that impact agriculture in general and everybody's operations. And now I see we're getting a nice couple rains here. The previous one a week ago before this, helped reload the soil a little bit. And we had guys around the area here getting in the field. I know there's some wheat in the ground, and I know there's some sugar beets in the ground up and down the valley, and there was some warming temperatures and the ground's warming up. So it's nice to see some seed get in the ground and in good conditions to help optimize germination and, optimize the crop in general. So kind of start with that and then just monitor, as we go through the year.
Yeah, I think some people are definitely got that early jump into the field. Maybe it's not necessarily too early, but earlier than last year, especially with, like you said, some folks getting in beets and wheat into the ground last weekend before this rain came through. I think will give them a nice little head start on an early crop, because outside of this week coming up, Thursday through Sunday, overnight lows will be below the freezing mark. But as for the following week and after that, I'm really not foreseeing any cold weather coming into the area, at least in terms of it freezing or frosting in the area. So I think that'll be nice to help get people out there even quicker than that, to help dry up some of the moisture that doesn't necessarily soak in over the next couple of days, but also warm up the soil so that way we can put more corn in the ground as well, where you need a little warmer soils. In regards to higher interest rates, we've been talking and tracking this for the last year with all the interest rate hikes from the government to where they're at today. And now they're talking about doing a few small possible lowerings on those tax rates. How does that factor into banking, or even as a consumer with maybe, say, a lower farm income over the past few years and these higher interest rates? Is this kind of choking some folks off from either getting new equipment or getting into larger operations or anything like that?
Well, it certainly impacts everybody, as we're all aware. That they've seemed to have at least leveled off in general. The Fed has quit with the hikes, and that certainly helped. It has been another variable for farmers to have to manage. When interest rates were a lot lower, that interest expense as a percent of overall expenses wasn't quite as high, so not as much management was needed on there. And some of the younger farmers haven't seen some of these even way back when I started. Some of these 8.5% rates and stuff on operating lines and term loans in the 7s and stuff that we're looking at now. I mean, that was somewhat the norm at the time. Probably late 90s and stuff like that into 2000s, and nothing too out of line overall historically. But some of the younger ones starting out haven't quite seen this level of rates quite yet, and it's another variable expense that people need to manage. And the banks get affected with it as well. The Fed fund rate to get funding from the Fed for operations. I mean, it's been going up for the banks and stuff too. I mean, you fund some off of deposits as well, but you also have to work off the Fed funds rate, and that's been increasing for the banks as well. So everybody's kind of managing that operating margin, whether banks or farmers themselves.
Right. You had just said something there, and I want to add on to that. You had said some people, this is their first experience with interest rates, maybe this high, or they're just starting off. For those that have maybe just inherited a farm or just started farming, or it just got passed down to them from one generation to the next, and this is what they're starting into or walking into, with higher expenses, higher interest rates, and all the political stuff that's going on in regards to farming or agriculture or carbon or all the other nonsense out there. Do you think, or have you heard from any of the younger people just getting into this, is it a bit discouraging or off-putting for them to walk into some environment like this, where it's so much more difficult than, say, it was maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago? Are you seeing people thinking about not wanting to do this anymore, or just being discouraged to continue for those that are just walking into this?
Well, I imagine it's going to be eye-opening for some of the guys just starting out. it was, a few years back when market prices first kind of started climbing up and got to pretty good levels, and you always get that effect typically on it where the markets will shoot up quicker and then the expenses kind of catch up with that. So you get a little bit of a lag effect there where it does help open up the profit margin, where management, if it's not quite as intensive or, maybe not even quite as correct, or, the weather helped out with some great crops. I mean, it was, pretty good profit margins all around. So it was, a little bit of going through the motions and still making sure that things were there, but you didn't have to fine tune quite as many things. But, the expenses catch up, and as the markets start to turn back down, those two lines on a graph per se, are starting to close back together. And now as you see that profit margin start to narrow, it's definitely an eye-opening one of, hey, 175 bushel corn at $4, not quite the same gross as we're used to seeing. It's a heck of a good crop, but at $4 or $4.25, you take $100 an acre for seed out of there for corn and stuff like that, and fertilizer. That's a variable too that you got to manage. But you take the fertilizer and the seed, and then if you're renting land or some type of ownership charge to that, doesn't leave a whole lot of margin there. And then you see what crop insurance prices are like, and of course we got to have the fungicide and the chemicals to control the weeds and maximize your yield for what you do get. So yeah, it starts to eat that margin up really quick.
So, Chad, when you talk about margin and also, assets that people have as far as the farm's concerned, I do have one quick question. This was a topic of conversation I had through a different phone call earlier today. Do you ever see that the carbon credit market that farmers are a part of, can that ever be looked at as an asset on a balance sheet so that they could be enrolled in a program and receiving the carbon credit money? Any thoughts to that?
Oh man, that's going to be a tough one just because we are in the early stages of getting that established. Going to want to see how that carries forward, and you're going to want to have some consistency in it to see how it fluctuates and what type of value you can, how would you say, safely or conservatively to some degree put on that. You allude to this as a bit of a reach, but you don't want to get caught in a certain type of circumstance like back in the 80s when as land values shot way up fairly quickly, and at that time people were adjusting in their financial statements to match that, and then all of a sudden we had a correction. And as we all are, some of us more seasoned people recall, there was a lot of upside down stuff that happened there and a lot of troubles that get created out of that. So it's going to be a slow and, safe, conservative approach to see how that really plays out. So it's going to be a few years before we really get to see, what we can really put on something like that.
Well, that's a really good point. I mean, it's an unknown, but I can tell you that just in the time that I've had so far today, it's been more and more of a question being asked, so I thought I'd pose it. Chad Priewe, thank you for joining. I apologize. I heard we had a lot of computer issues and so forth earlier. Glad that Justin, as usual, can fly this plane with two left wings and make it work. So thank you to him. Don't forget,
Justin, the magic juggler.
He's a magic juggler, all right. And here I am hanging out with all our previous guests, people like Caitlin Root from Minnesota Cattlemen, as well as Julie Ellington with North Dakota, and so many more. So don't forget, you want to continue to hang out with us. We will be back with a catch of the weather and a few headlines. Don't go anywhere.
Be lucky caller number 3.
Howdy, folks, and thank you for being here this afternoon. And to Justin for being a great co-host and being able to literally take care of everything while I'm just in a plane. It was fine. It's all good. We're here.
I gotta give a lot of credit to the Highlander in the studio. He's the he or she is the one that really took it over, and it was funny for those on the stream, Bridgette, because Addison had pulled up the camera of the little stuffed Highlander next to the microphone while you were talking. It seemed like the little plushie was doing our intro for us.
That worked out actually quite perfect. Yeah, and like I said, I am in Washington, D.C. I am here with a number of folks from the National Cattle and Beef Association, the state association. So I got an opportunity to come in today with Caitlin Root from Minnesota, from Julie Ellingson from North Dakota. These are folks that have all been guests on our show, and it's kind of fun to catch up with them in person. Also, a great big thank you to Chad Priewe for joining us earlier. He is one of our sponsors for Here We Grow. He is with Dacotah Bank. And then another one of them would be the Steffels Group. They are the auctioneers in the area. They do a fabulous job with so many of our farm auctions, which, as many of us know, they've really gotten to an online presence. That's changed over quite a bit in the last couple of years. Fun to see how these things are changing. Congratulations to those of you who have had a chance to get registered for Jay's tax relief from ATI and Fargo, as well as Coast Materials. Coast Materials does not want you to rely on your tax refund. Make sure that you go to coastmaterials.com to get what you need, and then make sure you listen to the sounder during our shows so you can go ahead and get registered. And, okay, like there wasn't enough going on. I think you've probably hit on the weather a time or two, but I just have one question for that. When does the rain stop? Is this a tonight, a tomorrow, a Thursday? What's going on there, Justin? Give me a recap real quick if you could.
Yeah, well, the rain will continue today. It will remain windy. Wind advisories till 7 for wind gusts upwards of 55 or higher miles per hour. Scattered showers continue tonight, and they'll become widely spread, scattered, isolated showers. So not quite as widespread rains, but more widespread nuggets of rain for tomorrow. And then by Thursday, we'll dry things out, but there will be a slight chance for a few brief snow showers Thursday night into Friday morning, and then maybe a couple of sprinkles. So really the bulk of the rain's coming through now tonight, and it'll lessen up on Wednesday, and then it'll be pretty sparsely separated Thursday and Friday. We'll just categorize it as basically being dry Thursday and Friday, Bridgette.
I think that's fair. And I look forward to seeing what rainfall totals are. Folks want to see their lawns green up. We want to see pastures greening up. There's so much that is yet to be done. I watched lots of messages from folks in the last few days talking about getting their small grains planted. Sugar beets are going in the ground. I mean, things are moving along at a very rapid pace. Now, in addition to that, it's the summer grilling season, and we know that most of us want to put a burger on the grill, maybe even a steak. But don't look for beef prices to go down quite yet. Input costs have been high. Right now, we are at the lowest number of cattle in the herd across the U.S. that we've had since 1964. And replacement cost of those animals is not cheap. So we are not rapidly replacing it. It's not like you can go plant some cows and grow them up for next year. It takes a little while until you're raising to market weights, et cetera. So we will continue to see prices stay higher at the grocery store, particularly just with those grill, burger, some of the smaller steak cuts, et cetera. But never fear, we will be able to keep an eye on that for you and talk about it as we see changes happen. With the corn prices being down right now, that may lead to some lower input costs when we're finishing out those cattle on feedlots, et cetera. We'll see how that looks, but there's always plenty more to talk about, and we'll continue to do that throughout this week. So I look forward to everybody joining us again tomorrow, and Justin, especially to you, I'll be on time.
Well, we'll see if we get more technical issues tomorrow, but I appreciate everyone being patient with us here today with those tech issues that sometimes do arise. We're back tomorrow, 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Number 1 in the afternoon, at least it identifies as. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.